Hello everyone, Zadex Squared here. Welcome to Clan Krug. So Joe Blackburn, the game director of Destiny 2, just dropped a new article talking about mostly just, quality of life stuff and the changes coming next year to try and improve the overall health of the game. So going through it, it's the four main areas that he talks about are expanding players' imaginations, bringing challenge back to Destiny, enriching the content, and connecting Guardians. So just going through it, he mentions briefly the next two seasons coming up, Season of Defiance and Season of the Deep, and basically just talking about the quality of life improvements coming to these seasons. Specifically, the main stuff that is being added is umbral engrams are being completely removed, and seasonal engrams are going to be put in their place. On top of that, umbral energies are being removed, and so with this all put together, basically our inventories aren't going to be as clogged with both umbral engrams, since these seasonal engrams are stored on the vendor instead of in our inventory, and also with all of these resources from each season that just really don't do anything. On top of that, he said that they are basically removing any of the resources that are used to buy chests at the end of seasonal activities, and in their place they're putting in a single key that will drop and allow you to open the chest, and instead of it being you unlock this chest and get the seasonal loot like it is now, instead you'll get the seasonal loot from just completing the activity, and this key will just upgrade the rewards that you're getting from that chest. And so it's a bonus, it's not necessary to be able to play the season. On top of that, he just briefly mentions that Guardian ranks are being added, and that this is going to be a way to better signify how much a player has played the game and how good they are at the game. Because instead of the seasonal levels, which we see now, being reset every season, this Guardian rank will carry through year to year. And so you can view it, and it'll be a great indicator on how experienced this player is. Next up, he talked about weapon crafting, and while they enjoy weapon crafting, it's kind of put a bit of a stain on some of the activities, especially master raids being the one that they point out and that a lot of people have been talking about. So to update some of this, they're basically making it so there's fewer crafted weapons next year, and also non-crafted weapons, your randomly rolled weapons that are your standard thing, can get a form of weapon crafting where you basically upgrade it. And they're starting this with the raid adepts, and what this means is you won't be able to change the core perks that are on the weapon, so you still have to farm for the roll that you want on it, but once you get those rolls, you can basically enhance them and level up these weapons so that they can compete with the crafted weapons, so you're not stuck in a cycle where some weapons, especially these raid adepts, just don't feel worth it. He goes on to talk about the fact that they want to eventually make it so all weapons that are non-craftable get this, but for right now it's just the raid adepts coming in Lightfall. They briefly mentioned it last week, but he's just putting a nod to the fact that they are removing red borders outside any weapon that you need pattern progress on. On top of that, they're also targeting Season of the Deep, which is the season after Lightfall drops, to add a mechanism to activate Deep Sight on any craftable weapon that you don't currently have the pattern for, which should hopefully make it easier to craft weapons if you're getting lots of drops but not getting red borders to drop on it. Moving on to the challenge, Joe briefly goes through how he feels like with the Subclass 3.0 reworks, there was a lot of power creep going on, and some core activities, especially stuff like strikes, just don't feel as compelling as they used to, and that they're just not as difficult as they used to, which is not necessarily great for the game. He goes through to just briefly mention how there's two approaches that they're taking to fix this. One is tuning abilities. They talked about that last week, how they want to keep ability potency the same, but they want to nerf the uptime on the abilities so that you just can't spam as much, which is going to be great. On top of that, they also want to buff enemies to make them slightly stronger, and the way they're doing this is the way that they did it with the Heist Battlegrounds in Season of the Seraph, which is basically they have a tuning knob that they can just turn on and just slightly increase the difficulty activity to activity, and basically make it so that your power level doesn't get too much higher than the activity that you are currently doing, because it just pulls back how much your light will actually affect anything. This obviously has already been tested to, I think, and Joe thinks, great effect with the Heist Battlegrounds this season, where they're actually moderately challenging. They're not incredibly difficult, but they're definitely harder than your average strike. And he said that they're just going to basically move this over into the general strike playlist and into any other activities that they're doing. They're also looking to target the content that's being released. In the past few years, they've introduced a lot of new activities season to season that then just get completely removed from the game, which is great in those seasons where we get some really fun activities like Operation Seraph Shield or Presage last year. But when these activities are taken away, it really can hurt not only the game, but the experience of, how you play the game. So because of this, they're doing a couple things. In the next few seasons, they're planning to put more changes in place on Crucible and Strikes to make them a little bit more engaging. Joe talks a little bit about how the last season of next year is going to be completely focused on revamping the core ritual playlists just to make them more engaging. But on top of this, they're also adding new modes and maps to Crucible. They're bringing back some exotic missions and an exotic mission rotator. For this next season, they're adding in Presage, Operation Seraph Shield, and Vox Obscura, two of which are missions this year, and Presage was back in Beyond Light. These are all three great missions, especially Presage coming back is going to be great for the game and its health. It's a great mission. It's a lot of fun. It should be really good to have it back. And also, it's going to take those exotics out of Xur's hands so we can actually get them without having to, wait for him to have a good roll of any of the exotics that he would be selling. Then for Strikes, both Lake of Shadows and Arms Dealer are getting a complete overhaul to just update them into how the current strikes are being handled. And some of the older strikes, such as Exodus Crash and Inverted Spire, that they're not updating immediately, they're pulling out of the Vanguard Ops playlist and Nightfall rotations so that they don't show up almost at all until they can update them and bring them up to a level that they feel is appropriate for the current game and the current strike playlist as a whole. On top of that, they're also planning on introducing some of the battlegrounds that they've been adding the past couple years as Nightfalls. So specifically, Joe mentions that next season we are going to be getting the Mars battleground from Season of the Seraph as a Nightfall, which should be a lot of fun. It's a great mission, and I am actually really interested to see how it performs as a Nightfall. It might be incredibly difficult. It might not. We'll see how it goes, but I think it'll be fun either way. And then finally, talking about connecting Guardians, Joe briefly goes over how commendations are going to be working. We've gotten a little bit of information on them already, and it just sounds like it's going to be a fun system to basically be able to say, hey, I had fun playing with you. You were really helpful, or you were a lot of fun, or whatever it may be, which should help people not only be able to show off that they're, fun to play with, but also be able to engage with other people a little bit more. Next, something that we haven't really seen anything at all is they're just doing some brief touches on how text chat works, just trying to basically shift it from opt-in to opt-out so that more people who are not really worried about the settings in the game will be automatically opted into the text chat, and then if you want, you can go disable it as you can now. This should be a good change to just try and make it so more people are talking to each other. And then finally, the Fireteam Finder is the LFG system that they've been working on, and Joe does say that they are pushing it back from what they originally were trying to do, which was release it in summer, along with the returning raid that's going to be coming, either Wrath of the Machine or Crota's End. And they unfortunately have to push it back towards most likely the last season of this upcoming year, which sucks, but if they make a great system that helps bring people together, that is here for final shape, I'm all for it. As long as we get this eventually sometime next year, that should be good. seems like next year we've got some big changes coming. Obviously, we've seen a lot of Lightfall and some great things coming with not only subclass changes and additions, but also some of the new weapons that we're seeing. I'm really excited for some of the new exotic weapons. But it also seems like we're getting some good quality of life and just general gameplay improvements. Hopefully some of these future seasons don't feel as repetitive and grindy just from some of these things that they're talking about. Anyways, I've been Zadex Squared. Thanks for watching.